Harry and Meghan are having a conniption fit over these reveals. You know how they release parts of a book throughout certain media entities,
Yeah.
like right before they come out to tease it? Well, the Times is getting all of the best Tom Bower bits for
Huh.
Betrayal. Bower suggests that the 2025 games in Canada were overshadowed by Meghan Markle's public appearances, referring to the event as the Meghan Games. He cites Canadian executives who allegedly felt Meghan was a distraction and that her presence was more about bling than veteran rehabilitation.
Prince Harry's most personal project has suddenly become the focus of an intense public conversation. Ever since Tom Bower released his book Betrayal, debate surrounding the Invictus Games has continued to grow. The book reignited questions about the event's future, after reports suggested that several sponsors had stepped away, leaving many people wondering what impact that could have going forward. At the same time, renewed attention has turned toward the charity's finances, while a government document containing heavily blacked out sections has only added to the mystery. Stick with us, because those missing pages have become one of the biggest talking points in this entire discussion. Tom Bower has long been known as a royal biographer whose books often spark strong public reactions. Over the years, he has written extensively about members of the royal family, regularly presenting controversial claims based on his own research, interviews, and observations. In Betrayal, he takes a closer look at Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's departure from royal duties, describing what he believes were a series of fractured relationships and broken trust. One of the book's central topics is the Invictus Games, an event created to honor wounded and injured service personnel while celebrating their resilience, determination, and recovery. For countless supporters, the Games have always stood as a symbol of hope, courage, and the remarkable strength shown by veterans rebuilding their lives.
Invictus Games began with a profoundly noble mission to use sport to help recovery for wounded veterans. But lately, the math isn't mathing on their mission and the way that they run their foundation and program.
From the beginning, the mission behind the Invictus Games has carried deep meaning. The competition was established to recognize men and women who experienced life-changing injuries during military service, giving them an opportunity to compete, reconnect with others, and inspire people through sport. Every athlete arrives with a powerful personal journey. Many have spent years adjusting to new realities, overcoming physical challenges, and rebuilding confidence after experiences that changed their lives forever. Their achievements remind audiences around the world that difficult setbacks do not have to define someone's future, and that perseverance can lead to extraordinary accomplishments. According to Bower, however, he believes public attention gradually shifted in a different direction over the years. Rather than remaining focused almost entirely on the competitors, he argues that media coverage increasingly centered on Prince Harry and Meghan. As global interest in the Games expanded, Bower claims Meghan's appearances attracted growing attention, with discussions often moving beyond the athletes and toward her fashion, public image, and business ventures. He suggests this change altered the overall conversation surrounding the event.
He's made several highly critical claims regarding the Invictus Games, which we're checking out today, describing them as having become a vehicle for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's personal brand, rather than focusing on veterans, which I can say as a royal reporter, Scott, is something that I hear every Invictus Games, that there are some competitors that feel like Harry and Meghan suck all of the oxygen out of the room and it's not about them.
These remain Bower's opinions and have been widely challenged by others. Representatives associated with Prince Harry and the Invictus Foundation have firmly pushed back against those claims. They continue to maintain that the organization's primary mission has always been supporting veterans and highlighting their remarkable achievements. Because of that, two very different viewpoints continue to exist. One reflects Bower's criticism, while the other insists the Games have never lost sight of their original purpose. That ongoing disagreement remains at the center of much of the public discussion today. Many people have also asked why Bower's claims continue making headlines each time they resurface. Supporters of his work point out that he personally attended the Vancouver Invictus Games while gathering material for Betrayal. Instead of relying solely on previously published reports, Bauer says he observed the event firsthand and spoke with individuals connected to the games. He argues that those direct observations played an important role in shaping his conclusions, helping explain why the book generated such widespread attention after its release. Within Betrayal, Bauer also raises questions about expenses connected to the event. He alleges that funds associated with the games covered premium travel arrangements, luxury hotel stays, and private transportation for Prince Harry and Meghan. He further claims that staff members were encouraged to address Meghan as ma'am and Harry as sir, describing what he viewed as a more formal, royal-style atmosphere than many people might expect at a charitable sporting event.
Having a lot of issues. So I did write a piece this week, it was an exclusive, about how there are funding issues for Vancouver. So we know he is going to Birmingham this summer to prep for the games next year. And one of the reasons he's going is because he needs money.
Those claims have been disputed, but they continue to be discussed by readers and commentators. Bauer also referred to the Vancouver event as the Meghan Games, arguing that public attention had shifted away from competitors and towards celebrity coverage. That description quickly spread across news reports, online discussions, and social media, drawing strong reactions from every side. Some readers agreed with Bauer's assessment, while others strongly rejected it, insisting that the athletes remain the heart of the competition and deserve to stay at the center of the story. The publication of these claims also sparked a broader conversation about financial transparency. Some commentators questioned whether enough information had been publicly shared regarding event spending and organizational decisions. Others urged caution, arguing that conclusions should not be reached without reviewing complete financial records or official explanations. No matter which viewpoint people supported, the conversation soon expanded beyond the book itself and became part of a much larger discussion about accountability within major charitable organizations. As public interest continued building, independent researcher Rachel Maxwell began reviewing publicly available financial records in an effort to better understand the issues being discussed. While examining government documents connected to the 2025 Invictus Games in Canada, she came across a contract that had entered the public domain, despite reportedly being intended for limited circulation. Its discovery immediately attracted attention from people already following the growing debate. What made the document even more intriguing was its condition. Several pages had been heavily redacted, with large portions completely covered by black bars. Because so much information had been removed,
recent information about the Invictus Games Foundation and its Endeavor Fund have come to light and are painting a really bad picture of the situation.
Readers were left wondering what those missing sections originally contained and why they had been withheld. While redactions are common in government records to protect confidential or sensitive information, the amount of missing material in this case generated even more curiosity. As online discussions accelerated, interest in those concealed pages continued to grow, with many hoping future disclosures might eventually provide additional context. According to reports from people familiar with the matter, the redacted material was said to involve operating budgets and licensing arrangements connected to the Invictus Games. Those reports quickly drew attention because government funding connected to an event of this scale is generally expected to follow detailed oversight and documentation. As the conversation spread, many people questioned why portions of the financial information had been removed from public view. Some believed the redactions could simply reflect routine administrative procedures designed to protect confidential details, while others wondered whether further explanations or additional documents might eventually become available. Until more information emerges, the missing pages continue to fuel public curiosity and ongoing debate. Because government funding ultimately comes from taxpayers, many people expect a high level of transparency whenever public money is involved. That is why the missing section of the document quickly became such a major topic of discussion.
But people are a little upset about where the money is going because right now there's been a 63% drop in actual grants to wounded warriors, despite the fact that they have more money in their bank than ever from carryover. And in Vancouver, they brought in, it was around 62 million. 50% of that was from the government of Canada and BC, meaning that was taxpayers.
Commentators questioned why one portion of the agreement had been removed from public view while much of the surrounding material remained available. Without an official explanation, the absence of that information opened the door to many different interpretations. Some observers simply wanted a clearer breakdown of how public funds would be used, while others believed that releasing additional context could answer many of the questions spreading online. Interest in the story grew even stronger after another unexpected development caught people's attention. Reports indicated that only hours after the document began attracting widespread interest, the Invictus Canada website temporarily became unavailable. When the site returned, visitors noticed that the document discussed earlier was no longer as easily accessible. Instead, some users reported being redirected to a Dropbox login page before certain files could be viewed. While there could have been perfectly routine, technical, or administrative reasons for those changes, the timing immediately became another subject of online conversation. That sequence of events naturally led to even more questions. Why had the access process changed so quickly? Was it simply part of a scheduled website update, or was there another explanation behind it? Since no official statement addressed those specific questions at the time, discussions continued across social media and online communities. For many observers, the situation strengthened calls for clearer communication and greater transparency whenever questions involving publicly funded projects arise. As interest continued to build,
from Meg Yacht Grifter, who is now calling on a boycott of the Invictus Games, saying there is something not sitting right with this charity. Charities that have something to hide should not be trusted, especially with so much NGO fraud being exposed in the last few years. And they are calling on Boeing and American Airlines to think twice before donating.
attention shifted beyond the document itself and toward the Invictus Foundation's publicly available financial reports. Commentators reviewing annual filings pointed to several figures they believed deserved a closer look. Some observed that overall revenue appeared to have increased compared with previous years, while spending in certain categories seemed different from what they had expected. Those observations sparked another round of debate about how charitable organizations manage operating expenses while continuing to support their primary mission. Several analysts also focused on changes involving administrative costs, executive compensation, legal expenses, and financial reserves. Some questioned whether those increases were typical for an organization operating on an international scale. Others responded that hosting large global sporting events naturally requires substantial administrative planning and operational spending. The financial figures themselves became the center of ongoing discussion, with different experts and commentators reaching different conclusions about what the numbers actually suggested. As those conversations continued, attention also turned towards several organizations that had previously supported the Invictus Games. Boeing, one of the event's longtime corporate sponsors, was reported to have ended its sponsorship. The news quickly generated widespread discussion because the company had supported the Games for many years. Although numerous theories appeared online, no official statement connected that business decision to the claims discussed in Tom Bauer's book, and any direct connection remains unverified. Even so, many people continued discussing the timing. With public attention already focused on the organization, some wondered whether the broader conversation had any influence on sponsor relationships. Others pointed out that companies routinely review sponsorship agreements for many different business reasons, making it impossible to draw reliable conclusions without additional evidence. As a result, the discussion continued, but no clear agreement emerged. Additional reports later suggested that Australia would no longer proceed with a previously discussed government funding commitment valued at approximately $9 million for a future Invictus event. According to those reports, senior organizers learned of the decision shortly before it became public. If those reports are accurate, the change would have required organizers to review future planning, funding strategies, and event preparations while continuing to move forward with upcoming competitions. Around the same period,
but the government in Australia has axed funding for Invictus Australia from this year's federal budget, as the organisation's chief executive has urged the government to reconsider this decision. This is all sort of happening just as we speak, as we go to filming. Now, I've spoken to sources close to Harry, and of course they're shocked. They say, they're blindsided by this, as was the organisation in Australia.
Another leadership development also attracted attention when a member of the foundation's board stepped down from the role. Leadership transitions happen within many organizations for a variety of reasons, but with sponsorship discussions, funding questions, and financial reporting already dominating public conversation, the resignation quickly became part of the broader debate. Together, these developments created a challenging period for the organization, even as many supporters continued emphasizing that the athletes and veterans should remain the true focus of the Games. Looking at everything covered so far, one thing becomes increasingly clear. The public discussion surrounding the Invictus Games has expanded far beyond a single book, one government document, or one headline. What began with renewed attention following the release of Tom Bauer's betrayal has evolved into a much broader conversation involving leadership, transparency, funding, public perception, and the long-term future of one of the world's most recognized sporting events for wounded and injured service personnel. Throughout this story, we've explored several developments that captured widespread public attention. Reports about sponsorship changes, discussions surrounding financial statements, questions involving operating expenses, debate over heavily redacted government documents, and different interpretations of those missing pages have all contributed to the ongoing conversation. Each topic generated significant interest on its own, but together they created a much larger discussion that continues to unfold. One important point should always be kept in mind. Many of these issues remain the subject of active public debate rather than settled fact. Journalists, researchers, commentators, and supporters have often reached very different conclusions after reviewing the same publicly available information. Some believe additional explanations would help provide greater clarity, while others argue that several claims have been presented without complete context. Until more verified information becomes available, many of the biggest questions surrounding this story remain unanswered, ensuring that public interest is likely to continue. That lingering uncertainty is one of the biggest reasons this story continues capturing so much attention. Whenever people notice sections of official documents hidden from public view, it's only natural for questions to follow. Redactions are a normal part of many government records, especially when confidential or legally protected information is involved. Even so, when those redactions appear in documents connected to publicly funded projects, many people understandably wonder why certain details were removed.
Paula reports the next Invictus Games are scheduled for Birmingham in 2027. The UK government has committed up to £26 million in public funds, despite the city effectively declaring bankruptcy in 2023. It only exited that status in February of this year. With roughly 15 months to go, Birmingham has just 11 unnamed sponsors contributing an estimated £4 million combined.
And whether additional information might eventually become available. The same principle applies to discussions about charity finances. Large nonprofit organizations manage highly complex budgets that cover administration, staffing, travel, venues, security, logistics, fundraising, insurance, legal compliance, broadcasting, and countless other operating expenses that most people never see. Looking at only a handful of financial figures without the full context can sometimes create an incomplete picture. At the same time, organizations supported through donations and public funding are often expected to maintain a high level of transparency. That balance between operational needs and public accountability is one reason these conversations continue whenever questions arise. Sponsorship has also become one of the most discussed parts of the story. Major corporate sponsors regularly evaluate partnerships based on changing business priorities, marketing strategies, financial planning, or broader economic conditions. While the timing of sponsorship decisions often sparks public curiosity, timing alone doesn't necessarily explain why those decisions are made. That distinction is important because public conversation can sometimes move much faster than confirmed information. Even so, every sponsorship announcement connected to the Invictus Games attracts significant attention because of the event's international profile. Each reported change quickly becomes part of a much larger discussion, with supporters, commentators, and analysts all offering different perspectives on what it could mean for the future. The reported challenges surrounding future funding have also encouraged many people to ask what comes next for the Games. Organizing a worldwide sporting competition is an enormous undertaking. It requires years of planning, coordination between governments and organizations, dedicated volunteers, medical professionals, security teams, venue operators, transportation providers, and thousands of people working behind the scenes to make everything possible. Because of that, budgeting plays an incredibly important role. Every financial decision influences another area of the event. Unexpected costs can affect future planning. Sponsorship support helps shape available resources. Government contributions matter. Charitable donations matter. Every piece contributes to the overall success of the Games, which is why financial discussions continue drawing so much public interest. One of the biggest talking points involved reports comparing the overall cost of the Vancouver Games with the number of competitors. Those figures immediately sparked debate across news outlets.
And when you're dealing with taxpayer monies, people are kind of like, hey, why are we not buying prosthetics?
Right. And more importantly, you're right, are the wounded warriors getting this money that they deserve?
Social media platforms and online forums. Some people viewed the numbers as an example of how expensive major international sporting events have become. Others questioned whether available resources could have been allocated differently while still achieving the same goals. Neither viewpoint has settled the debate. Instead, the conversation has encouraged more people to take a closer look at how large charitable sporting events are funded, organized, and managed behind the scenes. Many supporters of the Invictus Games also point out that comparisons between organizations are rarely simple. Every event has its own mission: host city, security requirements, broadcasting agreements, logistical demands, and operational challenges. Looking at one headline figure without considering those differences may not provide the full story. Others believe those very differences make transparency even more valuable. They argue that clear financial reporting helps strengthen public confidence while allowing supporters to better understand how resources are being used. That ongoing exchange of opinions explains why interest in this topic has continued long after the original headlines first appeared. Perhaps the most important point throughout this entire discussion is that the athletes themselves should never be overshadowed. Every competitor who participates in the Invictus Games brings an extraordinary personal story filled with resilience, determination, and perseverance. Some have overcome severe physical injuries. Others have spent years working through rehabilitation and recovery. Many have rebuilt their confidence after experiences that completely changed the course of their lives. Some spent months simply learning basic movements again, while others adapted to entirely new ways of competing after permanent injuries reshaped their futures. For many participants, reaching the finish line means something far greater than standing on a podium or receiving a medal. It represents courage through adversity. It represents determination in the face of enormous challenges. Most of all, it represents hope and the refusal to let difficult circumstances define the future. Those personal journeys remain the true heart of the Invictus Games, regardless of the broader conversations taking place around the organization. That is why so many people care deeply about protecting the event and preserving its original purpose. Supporters hope the Games will continue inspiring future generations of veterans and service personnel. Meanwhile, those calling for additional transparency often argue that greater accountability could strengthen public trust and help ensure the organization's mission remains front and center. Although these groups frequently disagree about specific issues, many ultimately share one common goal: keeping the athletes where they belong at the center of the story. Unfortunately, that focus can sometimes be lost when headlines become dominated by books, financial reports, sponsorship discussions, leadership changes, or government documents. Media coverage naturally gravitates toward controversy because those stories often generate the strongest public reaction. The competitors themselves rarely seek that attention. They simply arrive ready to compete, support one another, and demonstrate what perseverance truly looks like. Without their remarkable journeys, none of these larger conversations would exist. Their accomplishments continue inspiring families across the world. Their resilience continues encouraging people facing challenges of their own. Their stories serve as powerful reminders that setbacks do not have to determine what comes next. No matter how the broader discussion develops, those achievements deserve lasting recognition. Looking ahead, several important questions still remain. Will additional information ever be released regarding the redacted government document? Will future financial reports provide greater clarity about some of the issues that have been debated? Will former sponsors return, or will new organizations step forward? How will future host cities secure the resources needed to organize these international events? And how will organizers continue balancing rising costs while protecting the mission that inspired the Games from the very beginning? At this stage, only time can provide those answers. For now, the conversation continues evolving. New reports may emerge. Additional public documents could become available. Future financial statements may offer more context. Official responses could clarify some of the issues currently being discussed. or entirely new developments could shift public attention in an unexpected direction. Until then, many people will continue following every update closely. As always, it's important to remember that not every claim circulating online has been independently verified. Public discussions often combine confirmed information, personal opinions, interpretations, and speculation. Looking at multiple reliable sources and waiting for verified updates remains one of the best ways to understand complicated stories like this. That approach makes it easier to separate established facts from ongoing debate. It also allows everyone to form their own informed opinion instead of relying solely on attention-grabbing headlines. No matter where you stand after hearing everything covered in this video, there's little doubt that the Invictus Games continue to hold a unique place on the world stage. They represent much more than athletic competition. They symbolize resilience, determination, recovery, and the ability to overcome extraordinary challenges. At the same time, organizations connected to major public events naturally receive greater public scrutiny. That combination keeps stories like this in the spotlight. On one side are the remarkable achievements of the competitors. On the other are continuing discussions about governance, funding, leadership, and transparency. Both conversations will likely continue as preparations move forward for future editions of the Games. Whether more answers emerge or not, one thing appears certain. People will continue paying close attention, journalists will continue reporting, researchers will continue examining publicly available records, supporters will continue celebrating the competitors, commentators will continue asking important questions, and every significant development will likely spark another round of public discussion. For now, the full picture is still unfolding. Some questions have found answers, while others remain unresolved. Only future developments will reveal where this story ultimately leads. Now, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think more information should eventually be released, or do you believe the public debate has already gone as far as it should? Let us know your perspective in the comments below. We always enjoy reading respectful discussions and seeing the different viewpoints our viewers bring to stories like this. If you found this video informative, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe for more in-depth coverage, and share this video with anyone who enjoys following major public stories. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.